The school bully attacks a black girl. Without knowing, she's Vin Diesel's adopted daughter. Autumn's chill wind swept through the gates of Lakewood High, a prestigious school nestled in the affluent northern suburbs of Denver, where 87% of the student body was white and traditional values were preserved like a matter of family honor. Amidst the crowd of students laughing, wearing athletic hoodies, and carrying designer leather backpacks, a new face appeared. Mia Wilson, 17, stepped off the school bus like any other student. But with just one glance, it was clear. She wasn't like the rest. She wasn't timid, but neither was she arrogant. She didn't seek out anyone's gaze, but they all turned to look at her as she passed. Her slightly worn backpack, faded canvas shoes, and eyes sharp as a blade. No one could guess what lay behind that face, but everyone could feel. Something was different. Lakewood High was not a place for misfits. The hierarchy was well defined. The football team ruled the main hallway like a private kingdom. The cheerleaders commanded admiration. The elite student council dictated the event calendar. Everyone else, they were just invisible. Mia knew that, and she chose to be invisible. No club signups, no quick friendships, no talking unless necessary. She simply observed, like a new chess piece, quietly assessing a board that had long been arranged. But what Mia didn't know was this. At Lakewood, even silence could be seen as a challenge. And there was one person, the so-called ruler of the school, who wouldn't easily ignore the presence of an outsider. A gripping and dramatic story is about to unfold. To follow the rest of the journey, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the powerful stories to come. At Lakewood High, there were unwritten rules, but everyone followed them. One of those rules was, don't cross Evans Roy. Evans, 18, captain of the football team, was the only son of one of Colorado's top real estate moguls. He didn't just possess an impressive frame, nearly 6'3" and built like a linebacker. He also carried an invisible kind of power, the power to be ruthless without consequence. No one dared call him a bully, because that would make you his next target. Instead, people said, Evans is just messing around. Messing around, as in making someone too afraid to come to school for 3 straight days. Every morning, the second-floor hallway was his domain. Evans would lean against the row of blue lockers, arms crossed, wearing that half-smirk like a crown. Around him hovered his satellites, all football players in matching varsity jackets, eyes scanning for anyone who dared step out of line. His laughter always came right on cue, not loud, but just enough to chill the air. And then Mia Wilson appeared. No one introduced her to Evans. She didn't look at him. But that was the offense. When Mia walked past him in the hallway, brushing his shoulder by accident, she didn't lower her eyes. She didn't apologize. Evans watched her go like he'd just spotted a crack in the foundation of his empire. For the first time in months, Evans felt ignored. And to him, silence wasn't indifference. It was defiance. He flashed a dangerous smile and muttered to his boys beside him, I think that girl needs a proper welcome. Monday morning, 8:03 a.m., Mia Wilson walked through the second-floor main hallway for the first time, the place students at Lakewood High called the Forbidden Zone. At Lakewood High, time and space seemed to operate on Evans Roy's schedule. Every morning, he stood by locker 209, right next to the student activities board, as if he were the one who approved everything that happened during the day. And that day was no different. Evans was laughing loudly after telling one of his inside stories to his crew, a cruel joke about a freshman who had ketchup squirted into his backpack during Friday's game. The whole group burst out laughing, bumping shoulders in a ritualistic tribute to their leader. That was the moment Mia Wilson passed by. She didn't look at them, didn't turn her head, didn't change direction. Just a slight shoulder brush, but enough to stop the story mid-sentence, to shift every gaze to one spot. A moment where most people would apologize, step back, offer an awkward smile. Mia didn't. Evans narrowed his eyes, the kind of look he gave when he had locked onto his next target. He stepped forward and called out, "Hey!" New girl's already forgetting her manners, huh? Mia didn't stop. She kept walking, gripping her math notebook tightly, as if she hadn't heard him. That made Evans' friends snicker, not because Mia seemed clueless, but because they knew. Evans wouldn't let it slide. With one long step, Evans reached out and tugged on the strap of Maya's backpack. She stopped. The hallway held its breath. No one spoke. Footsteps paused. Locker doors stopped clattering. Students at the vending machine or the guidance desk all turned their heads. Mia turned around. Slowly. Not startled. Not afraid. She looked Evans in the eye. Not challenging, but not avoiding either. And it was that strange calm that made Evans, for the first time, unsure if he was in control. "You shouldn't do that," Mia said, voice low, steady, never rising. Evans laughed. "Oh, yeah? And who the hell are you to talk to me like that?" No one laughed with him. No one echoed it. Just silence. The kind that made Evans more irritated. Mia didn't reply right away. She only shifted forward slightly, just enough to close the gap, taking back control of the space. "I just think you picked the wrong person, and your first mistake was thinking I'd be scared." Evans gave a dry laugh, stepping half a pace back, not because he was threatened, but because he couldn't figure her out. This wasn't the kind of victim he was used to bullying. No tears, no anger, just dangerously sharp composure. Mia turned and walked away, leaving Evans standing there. Hands slack, eyes following her like he had just lost control of something he thought was permanent. That afternoon, 3:47 p.m. chemistry class had just ended. The final bell rang with a wave of relief across the student body. In the parking lot of Lakewood High, tucked beside the synthetic turf football field, students began pouring out in groups. The late afternoon sun stretched across the blacktop, casting long shadows from the polished SUVs of Denver's upper class. Mia Wilson walked slowly toward the exit, one earbud in, a small notebook in hand, jacket tied at her waist. Still calm, still quiet. But clearly, people had started to notice her. Evans Roy stood not far away, leaning against his white Ford Bronco Wildtrak. Arms folded across his chest, one foot crossed over the other, eyes locked on Mia. Behind him were not the usual group, just Trey and Derek, his two most loyal satellites. "Who does she think she is?" Trey muttered. Evans didn't answer. He was just waiting. As Mia turned into the lot, Evans stepped out and blocked her path. "Mia Wilson," he said, his tone trying to sound casual, but the veins in his neck told another story. Mia stopped. She removed her earbud. That same gaze, not warm, not cold, just a mirror reflecting the chaos within Evans. "What do you want?" she asked, as lightly as if she were asking about the weather. Evans scoffed. "You think you're better than me? Because you ignore me? Because you've got presence? You think you can come here and act like the rules don't apply to you?" A group of students walking by slowed down. No one intervened, but all eyes were on them. That atmosphere, the scent of a power clash, spread faster than any rumor in school. Mia sighed. "Number, I don't think I'm better than anyone. But I do know I'm not the one you want to mess with. You're gambling with something way out of your depth. Evans laughed, a forced laugh. Oh, yeah? You gonna call your mom? Or the principal? Think someone's gonna save you from me? Mia didn't respond. She pulled out her phone, opened an app, pressed one button. An engine roared from down the road. Deep. Low, the growl of a wild predator cutting through the quiet neighborhood. A sleek black Chevrolet Camaro SS turned into the lot. Its LED headlights swept across Evans's face. The engine growled again, then came to a stop just 3 steps from Mia. The window rolled down, slowly. Behind the wheel, Vin Diesel. No introduction needed. No greeting spoken. His eyes landed on Evans. A stare heavier than any punch. So heavy that Trey instinctively stepped back half a pace. Mia smiled, for the first time that day. She turned to Evans and asked quietly, "Still think I'm weird?" Evans was speechless. Not a word came out. The pulse in his temple throbbed, while the rest of him stood frozen. The students nearby, who had been on their way home, were now pulling out their phones, filming, whispering. "Is that Vin Diesel?" Mia stepped forward, opened the car door, and slid into the passenger seat. Not in a rush, not showing off. Vin still didn't say a word, just glanced at Evans one final time. Then, the Camaro growled, reversed, and glided out of the parking lot like nothing had ever happened. Evans stayed put, throat dry. The crowd began to disperse, but the eyes were still stuck on him. For the first time in nearly 3 years of ruling Lakewood High, Evans Roy felt small. The engine of the Camaro SS growled beneath Vin Diesel's foot as he turned away from the gates of Lakewood High, the car gliding smoothly like a wild beast, retreating from its territory after a show of dominance. Inside the cabin, the late afternoon sun stretched across the carbon-wrapped dashboard, reflecting a hint of fatigue from a long day. But between the father and daughter seated in the car, there was no tension. Only silence, in the truest sense, shared by those who deeply understand one another. Mia leaned her elbow on the window, her eyes watching the world outside, where the silhouette of the Rocky Mountains blurred behind a row of distant high-rises. Vin glanced at her, one hand steady on the wheel the way he had always steered through the chaos of his own life. "The way you stood in front of that kid, not bad." Mia smiled faintly. "I didn't do anything." Vin nodded, the corner of his mouth twitching upward. That's exactly what scared him. He changed lanes, gliding past a Lexus SUV parked at the curb. The air remained calm. Then Vin added, "Evans Roy is the type who survives on control. He doesn't need people to like him. He just needs them to fear him. And when he sees someone who doesn't, he unravels." Mia turned to him, a rare look of seriousness on her face. "So should I confront him head-on?" Vin didn't answer right away. Instead, he switched to cruise control, letting his hands rest on the armrest. "You don't have to fight him his way. You don't need to yell louder or hit harder. You just need to show him. Every step he takes to hurt you is a step he's destroying himself." Mia nodded, as if mentally taking notes. "I'll let him dig his own grave." Vin squinted slightly, tilting his head to study his daughter for a long moment. "That's a little scary. Almost sounds like me when I was younger." They both laughed. The car turned onto 17th Avenue, heading toward Hillcrest Ridge, a neighborhood where $4 million homes sat quietly beneath crimson maple trees. Vin turned off the music, his tone turning firm. "But you need to be careful. People like Evans, when they lose control, don't accept reality. They'll do anything to get that feeling back, even something stupid." Mia sighed. "I don't want to escalate, But I'm not running either. Vin stared ahead, his voice slow and steady. You don't need to run. You just need to be ready. And if the moment comes to strike back, let him walk right into the blade he sharpened for you. After a moment, Mia spoke softly, as if confessing something that had been weighing on her. A part of me wants to end this right now. Humiliate him in front of the whole school. Drag everything into the light. Vin nodded. And you could. Right now. Just one clip, one word. And he falls. But I won't, Mia said firmly. Vin turned toward her, pride in his eyes. Why not? She sat up straighter, adjusted her seatbelt, her gaze steady on the road ahead. Because if I do that, he'll always blame someone else. I want him to realize he was the one who ruined everything. I want him to look in the mirror and see the failure staring back. Vin Diesel smiled softly. Then you don't need any more weapons. You already have the one thing he'll never understand. Self-control. The next morning, at 7:41 a.m., the parking lot of Lakewood High was busier than usual. Students arrived earlier, clustering in small groups like bees from a shaken hive. Not because of the chemistry quiz or the fact that the football team had just lost by 3 points to Grant High, but because of one name, Vin Diesel. You sure it was Vin Diesel? I saw it with my own eyes. He turned the steering wheel like it was straight out of Fast and Furious. That Camaro SS had a custom plate, letters DSL, number 74, jet black, 100% his personal car. But who even is Mia Wilson? She doesn't exactly look like she was adopted by a celebrity or something. The second-floor hallway, once Evans Roy's undisputed kingdom, felt different today. Gone was the loud, boisterous laughter of his crew. Gone were the whispered remarks about freshmen. Only a quiet sense of unease hovered between exchanged glances. Evans stood there, as he did every morning, hands in the pockets of his red varsity jacket. But this time, his face wasn't composed. When Mia walked past, dark blue jacket, one earbud in but not playing, steps steady. The hallway seemed to narrow. She passed Evans without looking. No nod, no flinch. And strangely enough, it was Evans who broke eye contact first. Derek nudged him slightly, whispering, "You good this morning?" Evans nodded, a nod that lacked conviction. Trey jumped in. "Last night. That was real. That was actually Vin Diesel?" Evans shrugged. "Just a coincidence. Don't make a big deal out of it." But even he knew. No one believed him like they used to. At 9:05 a.m. in advanced math, Mia sat in the back row. No one invited her to join their problem group. But for the first time, they didn't sit far away. Not because they were suddenly friendly, but out of respect. During lunch, 11:48 a.m., the cafeteria was as packed as always. The middle row of tables, reserved for the school's athletic elite, was still occupied by Evans. But today, only 3 people sat around him. Ryan was late. Trey pretended he had lunch plans with his girlfriend. Derek stared at his phone the entire meal, avoiding Evans's eyes. In the corner of the room, Mia sat alone, as usual, but her spot had changed, no longer in the dim back corner. She now sat near the window, where people could see her. And more importantly, people were starting to look. A group of 11th grade girls whispered, "He used to mess with someone, and the whole school would freeze. What now?" The way he looked at Mia this morning, worse than when he lost MVP. Evans heard it. He always heard it. Every whisper, every side glance, every message spreading like wildfire through the school's private network. Around 2 p.m., he saw Mia walking out of biology class. She paused in front of the bulletin board, reading a flyer about the Student Debate Club. Evans approached, standing beside her. "I thought you liked being silent," he muttered, trying to reclaim some control. Mia looked over, squinting. "Silent when needed, speak up when it matters. And you? Silent out of fear? Or because no one listens anymore?" Evans was speechless, not because the words were too sharp, but because they were painfully, undeniably true. That lunch hour, 11:51 a.m., the Lakewood High cafeteria was more crowded than usual. The line stretched from the food counter all the way to the exit. Every table was packed, except for Mia Wilson's, which remained empty save for her and her thick notebook. Ryan Bigfoot, the football team's defensive tackle, 6'4" and nearly 240 pounds, was whispered something by Evans while picking up his lunch tray. Ryan nodded, his eyes flicking toward Mia. A stupid plan was taking shape, and as always, it stemmed from the insecurity of someone losing control. Mia was walking between two rows of tables, holding a tray with grilled chicken salad, a cup of lemonade, and a slice of pre-cut pizza. Just as she was about to pass table 12, where Evans's group sat scattered, Ryan stuck out his leg. The collision happened, but not the way they hoped. Mia paused just in time, tilting slightly, her grip on the tray precise to the last corner. Some lemonade sloshed out, but not a single drop landed on her. The entire cafeteria fell silent for a beat. A few students turned to look. Some pulled out their phones and started recording. Ryan was waiting for the trip and fall moment, so the group could erupt in laughter as always. But he didn't expect. Mia straightened up, turned, and looked directly at Ryan. Her eyes didn't squint. Her lips didn't smile. "I thought Neanderthals went extinct." "Oh, ah!" The entire cafeteria exploded. Chairs slammed into the floor, hands clapped together, and laughter rolled like a wave. Ryan froze, his face flushed red. Maya's calm reply hit squarely at the oversized ego he'd long used to mask his lack of thought. Evans, seated just one table away, clenched his fists beneath the table. He could feel control slipping from him, inch by inch, not just because Mia had struck back, but because the people around him weren't laughing with him anymore. Mia said nothing more. She walked on, set her tray down at her table, as if nothing had happened, then took a napkin and wiped the spilled lemonade. A girl at the next table, named Alina, hesitantly asked, "Do you want to sit with us?" Mia looked up and gave a slight smile. "Thanks. I'm good." But everyone understood. The unspoken rules of the cafeteria had just changed. Trey whispered to Evans, "We thought this would make her crash and burn." But Evans didn't reply. He stared at Mia like she was a math problem he'd never learned how to solve. That afternoon, Mia received news. The school paper, the Lakewood Lens, wanted to interview her for the new student spotlight. The writer? An 11th grader who had once been shoved to the ground by Evans in front of the football field, just for wearing the wrong varsity jacket. Wednesday morning, 7:39 a.m. Hallway C, where the senior lockers were located, buzzed with the usual sounds of clanking locks, slammed doors, and scattered laughter before first period. But then, it all stopped. A group of students stood in a tight circle around locker C217, third row from the main entrance. Some pulled out their phones. Others froze mid-motion, their hands still resting on personal lock pads. At the center of that circle, Mia Wilson's locker stood wide open, the hinge bent, with one end of the broken combination lock dangling uselessly. Inside, her books were torn to shreds, pages tossed around like trash. On the inside door panel, scrawled in thick red marker, were a series of vicious slurs. Monkey. Go back to the ghetto. You don't belong here." There was no screaming, no crying, only Mia Wilson walking up, placing her backpack on the floor, kneeling down to gather each ripped page. Her hands did not shake. Her face did not change. A girl named Olivia, formerly a close friend of the cheerleaders, took a step forward as if to help, but stopped. Not because she feared Mia, but because Mia's stillness made everyone else step back. Evan stood at the end of the hallway, leaning against locker C-101. From where he was, he saw everything. He knew Ryan and Trey had snuck in the night before, broken the lock, and decorated the locker. But seeing Mia on the ground, collecting her books without uttering a word, gave him no satisfaction. The air in the hallway hung thick, like winter fog. A sophomore boy, wearing glasses, sketchpad in hand, whispered, "They wrote that to her? After what happened yesterday?" Another student shook his head. This crossed the line. Mia stood up, folded the crumpled pages one by one, and placed them into a folder with a torn strap. She didn't look at anyone. She didn't speak. But everyone felt seen. When she gently closed the warped locker door, taping up her physics quiz with a strip of personal bandage, a male student took out his phone and snapped a photo. Not to spread, but to preserve as evidence. At the security office at the end of the hall, a female teacher spotted the scene on camera. She stepped outside, eyes locked on Mia from a distance, about to approach. But Mia had already turned away, walking upright, her gaze unwavering. Evans turned his face away as Mia's eyes swept past. He clenched his fists, veins rising on the back of his hands. But not out of anger at Mia. It was anger at himself. Trey stepped up, scratching his head, and muttered, "Did we go too far?" Evans didn't answer. During first period, 3 students, without coordination, reported the incident to the student counselor. Among them was a Latina girl who had once been mocked by Evans the year before for mispronouncing English words. When the principal's weekly announcement aired during third period, the entire school fell silent at these words. "We will not tolerate any form of racial discrimination, whether public or anonymous, through words, actions, or graffiti on a locker." Evans sat at the back of his social studies class, heart racing. No one said his name, but every eye shifted toward his seat. Thursday, 12:05 p.m. Lakewood High's cafeteria was no different from any other day. The thick scent of cheese pizza mixed with greasy fries hung in the air, tables packed, students buzzing in layered swarms like a tiered hive. At the central table, Evans Roy sat with Ryan and Trey, the last of his core crew. But silence hung over them like a drifting gray cloud. No one spoke. No one laughed. From the entrance, Mia Wilson walked in, holding her lunch tray as usual. She chose a seat by the window, where sunlight spilled through the clear glass, a spot once considered invisible, now the very place every eye gravitated toward. Evans saw her, and for the first time, he didn't plan. He acted on instinct. He stood up, walking straight toward Mia, leaving Ryan frozen, and Trey sitting still as if paralyzed. He passed by other students' tables. All looked up. None intervened. Evans stopped in front of Mia's table. "You think you're something special?" he asked, voice trying to sound even, but tinged with bitterness. "You think just because your dad's famous, riding in a fancy Camaro, that you can walk in here like no one can touch you?" The entire cafeteria went silent. The sound of spoons halted on metal trays. Whispers faded. Everyone was waiting. Mia looked up at him. For the first time, she put her spoon down, not out of intimidation, but to give her full attention to the truth about to be spoken. You think I'm the reason you lost your place here? Evans sneered. Aren't you? Maya tilted her head slightly, eyes steady. Evans, you're not afraid of me. You're afraid of the feeling that you no longer make people afraid. You're not fighting me. You're fighting yourself, your own shadow, and your fear of being forgotten. Silence. A silence even heavier than the day her locker was destroyed. No one said a word, but every eye had shifted, away from Mia and toward Evans. The boy who once sat at the center of every story now stood alone in a circle of his own making. Evans let out a forced laugh. A brittle sound caught in his throat. You don't know anything about me, he said, but his gaze had drifted. The certainty was gone. Mia leaned in slightly, voice calm and low. Maybe I don't know everything, but I do know this. When someone needs to prove their worth by making others feel small, it's because they feel worthless. And you know it. Every time you shoved someone, every time you shouted in someone's face, you were just trying to drown out the emptiness inside yourself. Evans stood motionless. Ryan lowered his eyes to his tray. Trey stood up and walked away. No one laughed. No one clapped. But the way the room stayed completely quiet spoke louder than anything. Evans turned and walked off without saying another word. His shoulders no longer held high. His once confident stride now looked like a quiet retreat. Mia returned to her lunch as if nothing had happened. But in her eyes, a thin layer of ice had melted, not from hurt, but from closure. Monday, 7:32 TEIQINEPM. Denver was unusually cold. Students bundled in hoodies and puffer jackets walked briskly through the Lakewood High parking lot, hands buried in pockets. But today, something felt different. In front of the C-row lockers, once the elite social hub of the school's sports clique, a crowd was forming. It started with a few 10th graders. Then came a group of 11th grade girls, followed by art students, basketball team members, even a handful of AP calculus kids, all gathering around one locker. Locker C115. Evans Roy's locker. The entire surface, both doors, inside and out, was plastered with printed EA4 pages. Each sheet displayed a message, a comment, a screenshot. From Instagram, from Snapchat, from school email, even from an internal group chat called LWH All-Stars, where Evans had once been the admin. Every cruel remark, every offensive post was printed in full. Everyone in drama is just a bunch of losers in angel costumes. Those scholarship kids, sure, they're smart, but that's all they've got going for them. Ms. Maynard is the worst English teacher ever. Old, stuck up, and impossible to like. I only talk to kids of color when they know their place. One page had a timestamp. Tuesday, 11:14 p.m. last week. Another featured a clip from a voice message in the group chat. Evans's voice, unmistakable, was cursing at a teammate after being criticized for selfish play during a game. Students stood in silence. Some took photos. Others shook their heads. A few quietly left the group chat. Ryan walked by, his eyes catching one sheet that read, "Ryan's slow as a turtle. If his dad didn't sponsor our uniforms, I'd have kicked him off the team ages ago." He clenched his backpack strap, then turned and walked away without a word. Evans arrived 7 minutes later. His eyes widened in shock as he stormed toward the crowd. "What the hell is this?" No one answered. Everyone just stepped back half a pace, giving way. Evans lunged at the locker, tearing off page after page, his breath ragged. Each sheet that hit the floor felt like a layer of his mask peeling away. Mia Wilson stood over 10 steps away, near the library pillar. She said nothing. She didn't smile. She just watched. She didn't need to step forward, didn't need to claim credit. didn't need to shout victory. Because Evans had done it all for her. A few underclassmen whispered, "We used to look up to him." Why were we scared of someone like that for 3 years? Evans turned around, looking for the crowd, but it had dispersed. All that remained were a few crumpled pages in his hands. All that remained were unfamiliar stares. No longer fearful, but disgusted. He turned again, eyes locking with Maya's. No more challenge, no more arrogance, just a question left unspoken. "Why did you do this?" Mia tilted her head, replying calmly, "I didn't do anything. I just let people see who you really are." Evans clenched his fists, but then he stopped, not out of fear, but because he knew that any resistance now would only drag him deeper. When the bell rang, students began to scatter. The locker was left untouched. The papers remained. No one cleaned up. The principal had been notified. The counseling team was alerted. And Evans, the boy who once made everyone turn the other way, now had no one left to avoid him. Monday, 3:08 p.m. The Denver sky had turned cloudy, and the wind swept lightly across the Lakewood High parking lot, tossing around the torn scraps of paper still scattered from locker C-115's exposure earlier that morning. Students began leaving school. Some gathered in small groups discussing the exam, others boarded buses, while a few silently scrolled through their phones, watching the Evans locker explosion photos go viral on Lakewood Loop, the unofficial student forum with nearly 1,200 members. Mia Wilson didn't rush. She walked slowly toward the end of the lot, where Vin Diesel's black Camaro SS sat parked beside a row of old maple trees. The late afternoon sunlight glinted off the hood, reflecting into her eyes like a reminder. True victory never needs much noise. Suddenly, Evans appeared from the left side of the lot, hands in his pockets, his stride restrained. Gone was the swagger of the one who once ruled the second-floor hallway. He stopped a few steps from Mia, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse as if scraped over stone. "You did this, didn't you?" Mia turned back, her gaze calm. She wasn't surprised. She didn't flinch. She just exhaled softly and replied, "Me? Number, I just let you expose yourself." Evans let out a bitter laugh, a crooked, dry kind of laugh, like laughing at himself. "Don't think you've won. You're just the new girl. The crowd will forget you soon enough." Mia tilted her head. "Don't you get it, Evans? This was never about me. It's about you, and how you treat people when you think no one dares respond." Evans stared, his fists clenched, but he couldn't step forward, couldn't act, because he knew. One wrong move, and he'd lose the last thing he had left, that flimsy title of team captain. "You think you're better than me?" he asked, one last time. Mia frowned slightly. "I don't think anything. I just know. I don't need people to fear me to feel like I matter." A silence settled over them. The wind picked up, catching a sheet of paper that read, "He only shines when others are kept in the dark." Evans followed it with his eyes, his gaze dazed for a moment. Mia stepped forward, pulled a key from her backpack, and opened the car door. "It's over, Evans," she said, not like a victor, but like someone who had just witnessed a person collapse under the weight of himself. Evans didn't reply. He just stood still, watching her slip into the Camaro as the door shut with a quiet finality that cut deeper than words. Vin Diesel was already in the driver's seat. No need to ask. No need to speak. One glance between them was enough. The Camaro growled to life, then slowly turned right out of the parking lot, leaving behind the silhouette of an 18-year-old boy, once revered by an entire school. Now just an image everyone wished to forget. 3:15 p.m., the courtyard of Lakewood High. Mia Wilson closed the door of the sleek black Chevrolet Camaro SS. As she clicked her seatbelt into place, Vin Diesel tilted his head slightly, glancing over. "All done?" he asked, as if the entire week's events had been nothing more than a minor chess game. Mia didn't answer right away. She looked into the rearview mirror, where the figure of Evans Roy stood alone, in the middle of an empty parking lot. She smiled faintly. "All done," she said, her voice barely above a breath. Vin nodded. He shifted gears. The wheels rolled forward, and the Camaro's engine purred softly before accelerating through the school gate. In the rearview mirror, Mia could still make out the row of sea lockers fading into the distance, where an old kingdom had just silently crumbled. "Winning without striking, that's real power," Vin said. Neither spoke for the entire drive back to the Hillcrest Ridge estate. But the silence wasn't heavy. It felt like a reward for those who had weathered the storm using their minds, not their fists. That evening, Mia sat alone in her room, her laptop open in front of her. She didn't check social media, where hundreds of comments were dissecting the Evans takedown. Instead, she opened a blank Word document and typed the first line. Title: Silence is also a language. The following week, something unusual happened at Lakewood High. Mia started getting involved. She appeared at the student speech club meeting with a talk titled Power Without Volume. She was invited as a special guest in the school newspaper, the Lakewood Lens, in a special issue called The One Who Redefined Silence. In the second-floor hallway, once Evans' domain, no one blocked paths anymore. No mocking laughter echoed. Instead, students walked through more freely, their eyes less avoidant, and, from time to time, they greeted Mia with looks of quiet respect. One day, Ms. Maynard, the English teacher, stopped Mia after class and handed her a draft proposal for a new program called Civic Values and School Community. "I think you should be the first to read this. You're welcome to give feedback," she said. "You've made people reconsider how they live alongside each other. You didn't need to shout, to be heard." Even some students who once sided with Evans began to shift. Trey joined the media club's filmmaking team. Ryan signed up for a Leadership for Change course. Evans? He withdrew from the football team. Rumors said he'd started seeing a private therapist at his family's suggestion. No one said Mia made that happen, because she never claimed credit. But everyone knew. From the moment Mia chose not to react, but to respond with calm, Lakewood High began to change. One afternoon in history class, the teacher asked, "Who has made the biggest impact on our school community this semester?" A girl stood up, looked around, then said, "It's not the loudest person. Not the team captain. Not the one with the most followers. It's the one who dared to do nothing when provoked. And still won. So what do you think? Did Mia Wilson win through calm and intellect? And is that the true strength of someone who doesn't need to shout to change an entire system? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe stories of resilience, dignity, and the quiet power of Black individuals deserve to be heard, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next episode from Black Strength Stories.